Gotta love a nice warm cup of coffee in the morning. For this video, I thought it'd be fun to show you one of the tricks that I do to set my weld test plates aside from other people's, and it mainly deals with thin materials. And if you ever weld thin materials and you notice that they start to warp up real bad and the joint starts to either hump up or dive down, well, here's a trick I do to avoid that. For this weld test, I'm going to be using some 18 gauge stainless, mainly because it's what I had on hand, and I kind of figured 50 thousandths thick material is a pretty good general thickness for a sheet metal shop that might do a test on you, or even possibly an aerospace shop. A lot of places I've been to, they've done a 30 thousandths test, which that can be a little tricky when you're kind of nervous and you're shaking around a little bit. So let's get started with this. Well, just like the song says, I've got a pretty bad feeling about this. This is in a standard butt weld fixture that you'll find at almost any aerospace shop, and some fabrication shops actually have these too. And the way I have this set in there is edge to edge, butted together, tacked together on either end, and I welded it straight out. And the problem you have with this is as this thinner material starts to shrink, there's nowhere for it to go. So as you can see, the material starts to bow on you, and that can really be a problem, and it can just wreak havoc after a little while, and sometimes your tack will break, and next thing you know, your material's walking over each other. See what the backside looks like. Got 100% penetration all the way through. And the only problem that I see with this is there's a big misalignment right here. And that can be a big ding on you if you're taking a weld test in certain places. So let me show you how I get around that. Now what I did different with this one is I put one tack on an end and I V'd out the other end. What this does is when you're welding along, the plates want to suck together. And if you have them butted together with a tack on the end, they want to push together and push down on each other, or push up like this, or sometimes they'll actually overlap each other. But if you leave a V and you give it enough space, it'll pull together as you weld along, and it'll keep the plates flatter for you. Now, the hard part about this is knowing how far to put a V in that and how big of a gap to put. And I put about a 1/16 of an inch or so with this, and this again is 50 thousandths thick material, 50 thousandths thick stainless. And I feel like it's going to pull about that much. So a lot of it just kind of goes along with experience, and if you have a chance, give it a try and see how much it pulls for you. If you put too much in there, it can become a big problem. But if you don't put enough in there, it'll close up halfway through and you run the risk of it starting to press against each other too much. So there's a real fine line of too much and not enough. A lot of it, honestly though, it's kind of guesswork. Well, now all we can do is weld it out and see how it comes out. So now with having the gap on one side, that allows this to stretch and move as it needs to and suck together so that the plates have somewhere to go. And honestly, I think it allows the argon obviously to flow a little bit easier through the material, and it makes the puddle not dance around as much, so it's really makes it a easier weld and a nicer weld in the long run. You know, I was thinking about something. Another thing I always see people doing, and it drives me crazy, is they want to take it out of the fixture right after they're done welding. And if you leave it in the fixture for just a few more minutes and let it cool down in the fixture, it's less likely to bow up on you. It may have a little bit of a bow either way, just from the nature of welding it, but if you instantly take it out of the fixture right after you're done welding, there's nothing to hold that from just curling up like a Pringle. So leave it in the fixture until you can physically touch it with your hands and then take it out of the fixture. Might be wondering why you see these plates sticking out the end of the hold down bars, and that has to do with getting more force on the front edge of the hold down bars. And this is just a little hack you can do to get more downward pressure closer to the weld joint, and that's where you want all the pressure to be. So if you see that you're welding in a fixture at a shop and you notice that the bars tend to want to rock back on you just a little bit, if you put some shims on the outside of it that are a little bit thicker than the material you're welding, it'll help pull down the toes on those tie down bars, and it'll really make a difference. Alright, this has been sitting here for a couple minutes. I could touch it with my fingers and it's barely warm to the touch. So let's take it out of the fixture and see what it looks like. Well, sometimes when it comes to a weld test at a company, you get one shot. So let's see how this turned out. And got good penetration all the way through, and is a lot flatter than the last one. There is a little bit of a mismatch, but it's nowhere near as bad as the other one. I'd put my name on it and submit it. So here's the first one that we did that was butted together, both ends, tacked together, both ends. And you can see that's what's called malalignment. And a lot of places, they probably don't really care about it too much, but you get into certain aerospace shops or certain high quality places and you're only allowed certain percentages of the material thickness. And when you get to really thin materials, that doesn't leave a lot of room for mistakes. And this was the second one where we had about a 60 thousandths gap on one end and tacked together on the other end. You can see it's a lot flatter. The burn through is much nicer and much more even. And this to me is what you want to submit when you're taking a weld test. Now there is a little bit of a malalignment, but not much. And Sometimes that just happens. There's not a whole lot you can do about it, but to me this came out a lot nicer, and like I said before, I'd put my name on this and submit it. Well, that's it for this one. I hope this simple little trick of tacking one end and V'ing out the other end can help you on your next weld test to set you apart from everybody else. Sometimes when you go into an aerospace shop or you go into a high quality weld shop, there's some pretty stiff competition, and doing things to pay attention to the little fine details can really set your plates apart from others and possibly get you the job. So again, hopefully you got something out of this, and we'll catch you on the next one.